What's going on, everyone? This is Ala Alarashi, and in this video, I'm going to be exploring who's to blame for the recent struggles that the Raptors have been having recently after the All-Star break. So, we know that before the All-Star break, they also lost a couple of games, but I'm looking at after the All-Star break, what's been happening, and why is it that the Raptors can't figure it out just yet? And they've actually lost to two teams they should have won against, in my opinion. So let's take a look at who's to blame in this situation. Is it Masai Ujiri? Is it Nick Nurse? Is it VanVleet? Is it Pascal Siakam? And before I continue on with this video, there's probably a good chance that if you are watching this video, you're not subscribed. So I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and like, comment, and share so that this content and this page could grow. Now, let's get straight into it. So, with the recent struggles, if we're looking at the schedule here, right? So, there's 22 games, 23 games left to play. The easiest teams left to play, in my opinion, are the Pacers. We're playing the Magic twice. We got the New York Knicks. We got the Atlanta Hawks, the Spurs, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, Cavaliers twice. And the only reason why I say that they're an easier team to play is because we are capable of keeping up with them. However, they have been playing well, so you can make an argument that they're also a tough team to play. The Houston Rockets are another easy team that we should win against, and then the Detroit Pistons as well. Now, they do also have some tough opponents coming up as well. They got the Brooklyn Nets twice this upcoming week. Then they also have the Denver Nuggets, Phoenix Suns, who are on fire. They're at top of the West. The Lakers twice, and even though they haven't been playing well recently, I still believe that they're a threat regardless. They're just big, they're tall, they have a lot of players over 6'8", which the Raptors have problems with whenever they're facing teams that have bigger players. Then we have the 76ers, who just added James Harden, which is going to be a tough matchup, and we play them twice. We have Chicago Bulls, where DeRozan has been tearing it up recently, a former Raptor, and he's been going off. And then you have the Boston Celtics and then the Miami Heat. Boston Celtics is a tough team because they have been playing really well recently as well. So look out for them, and hopefully that we can compete in those instances. And we usually do. Against tougher teams, somehow there's something clicks and we just play a lot better than what we do against teams that we think we should be winning against, right? So let's see how that happens. Now, that's one thing to kind of get out of the way, to look at the schedule and see what kind of games we have. But also, it was kind of strange that somehow the NBA decided it would be a good idea for the Raptors after the All-Star break to have 3 back-to-back set of games. So we just played the Hornets and the Hawks in back-to-back games, and then we have the Nets twice, somehow back-to-back as well, and then the Pistons and the Magic on March 3rd and March 4th, which are the Thursday and Friday. So it's a strange way to set up the scheduling here. I don't know who was responsible for that. I know there were a lot of mix-ups earlier on because of protocols, and they couldn't have games running. So that could have been the reason as well. But still, I don't think the NBA has done the Raptors justice in this sense, where they're tiring them out, and they don't need that help, as Nick Nurse is already kind of doing that himself. And if you look at the top 5 minutes played per game leaders, we have VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby all in the top 5. So VanVleet has been playing 38.2 minutes per game. You have Siakam at 37.6 minutes per game. Harden and LeBron James are 3rd and 4th there. And OG Anunoby at 5th, 36.7 minutes per game. Now, that could possibly be the reason why the Raptors are struggling. They might just be in pain. I mean, VanVleet, knee soreness. Anunoby recently with a fracture in his finger and his thumb. I mean, and then Siakam just generally just not feeling it, right? So that could be the reason. It could be due to fatigue, a lot of minutes, but also the fact that, it's just that's the result of playing a lot of minutes. You're gonna have injuries. You're gonna have tough moments where the Raptors are not gonna play as well, and that's kind of the sad part, right? Where you have our best players, Siakam and VanVleet, trying to keep the team rolling, but they haven't really found the rhythm after the All-Star break. And Fred VanVleet is putting it on himself, which is a leader, which is something that a leader should do. However, I don't think it's solely his fault. Nick Nurse is putting them into a position where they kind of have to perform. They have no excuses, and they're playing a lot of minutes, and it's not a result that the Raptors can control in that sense after having no kind of bench contribution. And then OG Anunoby still is going to have an X-ray to kind of to get a second opinion. They're calling it a small fracture, but that's also the reason why OG Anunoby kind of struggled after before the All-Star break. There were 3 games where he was only shooting at 28%, and before that, way before that, he was playing really well. So that could have explained why OG Anunoby wasn't performing at the highest level. And I guess we'll have to see what happens with Anunoby. And he's a big loss because he pours in 18 points per game. We need his contribution. Okay, and so I mean, in this sense, you can kind of put the blame here on Nick Nurse for playing our guys a lot of minutes and not inserting a lot of our bench players who are capable of playing, but I think they need the confidence. So that could be part of Nick Nurse's idea or thought to kind of play our starters all the time because we want to win and we're trying to win. Obviously, we're not trying to tank in any way, shape, or form, or it doesn't at least seem like it. And we also don't want to get into the play-in, right? So we're trying to make it to at least the 6th seed so we can avoid the play-in, which is the 7th to the 10th seed. And we're trying to avoid that. Hopefully we can. But it's going to be very tough. And that leaves us to think as well, is OG Anunoby a lot more valuable than we thought? He does a lot of stuff on the court that is not recorded necessarily on the stat sheet. And he's almost all over the place in terms of defensively. And that's one thing that the Raptors have been relying on, is that their starters are also very good defenders. And so if you're missing a player like Anunoby, that could be a big deal, right? So that's one thing for sure. I mean, don't put it past the fact that it's only Nick Nurse playing our starters a lot of minutes. It's also we're missing a big part of our team right here, right, with Anunoby out. Precious and Barnes, they've been stepping up recently. I mean, that's kind of good to see, and hopefully that Precious continues that kind of impressive play and confidence, right? He had that monster dunk, right? And so against the Atlanta Hawks, and he played really well. He had, I think, over 20 points per game in that, 20 points in that game, right? So for the Raptors, I think we're looking for, and so I'm just looking at the stats right here. So Precious did have 21 points and 9 rebounds coming off the bench for the Raptors in 30 minutes, which is really nice to have. But, I mean, we want to see that consistently, and hopefully even with Anunoby in the lineup, that we can get that contribution from the bench when they do get to play. Barnes, before that, against the Hornets, had a kind of a really good game against them right after the All-Star break. And Scotty Barnes had 28 points in that game, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist in 32 minutes. And this is another thing. Barnes, as a rookie, I think he's 20th in terms of minutes per game. So he's another guy that he's been playing a lot of minutes, and Nick Nurse has been inserting him into the game a lot of times and leaving him out there, which can be exhausting. And I've seen him on the court exhausted. He's coming back on defense, and he's kind of like breathing heavy. So that's part of the issue as well. I don't know what Masai's master plan in this case here, because after failing to address like our needs at the trade deadline, he did not address any of those. He did not address the fact that we need a center, and we saw how Kem Birch has been struggling. Right, the other night against the Hawks, he looked just lost out there. He didn't know what was happening, and then before that against the Hornets, Mason Plumlee kind of made him look like he was just a nobody out there, right? So that was kind of tough for Birch. I mean, I don't blame him in any way, shape, or form. However, that's something that Masai Ujiri should have been kind of going after, right? And there were reports that we were going after a center, but the asking price was too high. However, that's something that's up to the front office for them to figure out, right? So Masai Ujiri has failed to address the center position, and then also the guard position. And you can see how Fred VanVleet is lingering with injuries, right? And he's trying to push through, and that's something that he's been doing kind of. And he's a tough player, right? He's kind of been doing that all his career, and he's trying to show his toughness out there. But that's kind of the thing that the Raptors were hoping for when the trade deadline came up, and then as it kind of went by, none of those issues were addressed, right? So at the end of the day, it seems that Nick Nurse is trying to. It seems like this to me, at least. He's trying to prove to the front office that the roster needs a makeover, and he's playing all our starters a lot of minutes, and he's kind of trying to show that we don't really have much to play with. So I don't know what Nick Nurse is trying to prove here. If that's kind of his way of showing Ujiri that there's nothing else that he can put in terms of put into the game. But it seems like Ujiri is not concerned at all, and he's, ignoring. I wouldn't say necessarily ignoring Nurse's complaints, but not really paying attention to it as much as Nick Nurse seems to be putting a lot of effort into trying to win all these games, right? And he said before he's going to put the best players out there as much as possible. So hopefully the Raptors can figure this out. In my personal opinion, Nick Nurse needs to start playing the bench a lot more, giving them more confidence. It was good to see Malachi Flynn out there. I mean, he needs more reps in as part of a meaningful game, right? So it was good to see him out there. I mean, at that point as well, he was out there when the Raptors were down 20-25, right? But he needs to get more reps, show him that we can that he has the confidence to play his game. And then also Precious needs to be consistent, and Nick Nurse needs to put more trust in him as well as some other guys. Yuta Watanabe hasn't really been playing recently, and he's a big hustle guy too. And so let's see if Nick Nurse kind of trusts our bench players in this way. He's kind of mixed it up since the All-Star break, and it doesn't look like his usual roster rotation. So hopefully Nurse can figure that out for the team, and that we can get past this, and hopefully that we finish off with a good record and get to that 6th seed instead of getting into the play-in. And that's pretty much my opinion in the sense of who's to blame for the recent struggles for the Raptors. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share, and check out the other videos on this channel.